United Lutheran Seminary presents the Seminary Explores podcast, conversations on faith, art, people, politics, theology, life, and more, with voices from around the corner and around the globe. Welcome to the Seminary Explores. I'm Katie Giebenhein. My guest is award-winning vocalist, songwriter, librettist, playwright, spoken word artist, and actor Queen Esther. She's the current artist in residence at the Gettysburg National Military Park. Queen Esther grew up in Georgia. After a time in Austin, Texas, she now calls New York City home. Her rich and varied experience includes, but is by no means limited to, jazz, blues, Black Americana, alt-rock, swing, and gospel. She collaborates extensively with other musicians, including guitarist Elliott Sharp. They formed the critically acclaimed avant blues duo Huskow. Career highlights include headlining at the Apollo Theater with her musical The Billie Holiday Project, featuring her jazz quintet The Hot Five, and a role in the original cast of the first national tour of the Broadway musical Rent. Queen Esther, welcome to Gettysburg and welcome to the Seminary Explores.
Thank you.
So, what is the project that you are engaging with while you're here?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's Hydra, really. It's like so many different things that I'm working on all at once. And I sort of use the park as a kind of lightning rod to guide me towards whatever it is I should be working on that day, with the end goal of completing certain things. Mostly at this point, I've been working on songwriting and rewrites for Blackbirding, this solo show that I put together before I left New York. Quite a few of the moments that happen in the solo show are based on people and places in Gettysburg, which is why it was so important that I come here. And there's a bunch of other things too. I'm working on a treatment for a book and some other things, but mostly the song cycle that I was working on in New York and the one that Gettysburg is inspiring are what's really compelling me right now. Mm-hmm. And are these figures in historical figures or any living figures? Oh yeah, they're historical. Mag the Bluecoat, for example, someone that I focus on in the solo show initially. She's really compelling. I was really surprised to not see a lot of African American history of Gettysburg and of the Civil War integrated in what I see here. Mm-hmm. Not in the tours, not in the ghost tours. They don't talk about property ownership. Apparently, from what I've been reading, the property that happened, where Pickett's charge happened, was owned by Black people. Yeah. And the houses were owned by Black people. These were, some of them ex-slaves, but most of them had never been slaves. They literally owned the land and owned the property, and they had to run for their lives. Where did they run to? They collectively gathered whatever they could carry and went to the woods, a certain portion of the woods. Well, where? Which woods? What? No one is here to spell that out. That's not spelled out in the streets. That's not explained. Is there a marker in the woods to show where they stayed? Did they come back? How many came back? Were they allowed to have their land back? Or did that get blackbirded as well? You know, in many instances during Reconstruction and then the first part of the 20th century, property was simply taken because white people saw it and liked it and they took it and they knew that the federal government wouldn't do anything about it. Did that happen here? Also, the practice of blackbirding ended with Gettysburg, with this campaign. Why? There's nothing about blackbirding here, nothing about that history. And isn't this the whole reason why the war was being fought in the first place? I mean, I understand military battle strategy and The fact that the South almost won, they almost won, they came close, cannot be overestimated, cannot be overstated. They almost won. So, it's a fine mind, the battle strategy, the thinking behind all of this is interesting to study. But the reason they were doing it is not even highlighted. I'm walking around looking at all of the tours that they're giving in certain portions of the battlefield, and the people that I'm talking to don't even know that Black people own that land. They're saying things like, well, I never heard that. I didn't know that. Is that true? Yes, it's true. I pulled together a book list of about 10 or 15 books that I've been slowly sort of careening my way through when I knew that I was coming here, because I didn't want to arrive and have everything get blindsided. I wanted to at least have an outline and a game plan and certain things sketched out. But I still wanted to be free enough to just wander around on the battlefield and let certain things pull me, or certain moments, certain things that people have told me, or whatever I read. And that's the one thing that stuck with me. There should be a Black presence that hovers over all of this, because that's the reason why it was happening in the first place. And there was a Black community here. I had no idea there was a Black community here. Why isn't anyone talking about this? Why isn't anyone, where are their markers? And also, I think it's a real disgrace, if you want to talk military, that you have Black Civil War soldiers that are not buried in the National Cemetery.
Yeah,
they're a separate Black cemetery, which I saw yesterday, for Black people. And it's a travesty. I suppose it should stay that way, because it serves as a testament to and an ugly reminder of what America really is. I mean, this is who we are. I think that there is a brochure. There's always a brochure. When you're talking about a place, what you're imagining and what you've idealized and what people tell you, and all of that is also caught up in that brochure. You open it and it's glistening and glossy, and it's the best of the best. It's like a first date. You want to put your best foot forward. You want to look your best.
That's a great analogy, yeah.
Nobody wants to look badly or smell badly or spinach in your teeth on a first date. You want to put your best foot forward. Well, America's like that. America's like the brochure that you look at, and then you get here and you see all these things, and that's fine. I think Germany is one of the places in the world that's really tried to make the brochure and the place as alike as possible. They understand that the Holocaust was evil, and they are bracing themselves, all set to apologize for that for the rest of their existence. Everything there is one massive I apologize, and I will do everything I can to make sure this never happens again on our watch. Not here, ever again. And that's beautiful. That's one of the only places I've ever been where, my gosh, the brochure, and I'm really getting what I'm seeing. America is the exact opposite. And when I went to the Black cemetery yesterday, I felt it. These men gave all. They gave their lives, and they, more than anyone else, deserve to be in that national cemetery, because they weren't even free when they were fighting, and they weren't even considered human beings. And here they are in the cemetery that the city, I don't know whether the city or what happens during Memorial Day. Do we have 2 marches? Do we lay 2 wreaths? Do we have 2 different functions? Is it even acknowledged? Does anyone step forward and say, well, what about these men? Or is it something that happens in the Black community? And if that's true, then we've got 2 different brochures. And I just think, what did Yoko Ono say? I'm going to misquote it. No, I think it was Anais Nin who said, if you want to know what a society is like, or what the culture, or when you go to a new country, look at the way they treat their black people. And if there are no black people, look at the way they treat their women.
Yeah.
So you can learn absolutely everything you need to know about America by the way, not only the way we were treated, but the way that we're still treated. There should be, and there are markers there. Don't get me wrong, there are markers and they have signs and certain things are acknowledged, but it's just interesting. It's interesting that you have this national cemetery that is hallowed ground and dedicated to the men who gave all, the white men.
Yeah.
And over here, you have these black men who sacrificed more, in my opinion, because they weren't free. And they're not even acknowledged. I think there's something wrong with that. There's got to be a way to make that right.
Well, and also to make it more immediately visible, because it's here, but you have to kind of look for it, right? You have to sort of do some more research, or you have to sort of go
You have to look
more out
for
of
it.
your way. And it's a really interesting observation you're making, coming straight into it, right? Into this town, onto the battlefield, and saying, why is it not as visible as in Germany?
Well, look, wherever you go, no matter who you are, what are you doing? You're looking to see a piece of yourself.
Yeah.
You know, if you were a little girl, you'd say, well, where are the girls? Where am I in all this? You know, everyone just wants to see themselves. And so it's only natural that I want to see, well, where is everybody? Where are all the black people? Especially if this is what the war was about. And I know that there are people out there who are probably listening to me going, she's got it wrong, it's states' rights. Yes, it was states' rights to own slaves. The right to own slaves. Even in the Confederate States of America, their Constitution specifically says, we're doing this so we can own slaves. This is why this whole fight is happening. You have lots of letters that were written home by soldiers, Confederate soldiers of rank, talking about how we're doing this for slavery because we honestly believe in every fiber of our being that black people are inferior, and this is the position that they should take in the world. They should be subservient to us always, and we should be in the position to take care of them and This is the natural order of things, and we are fighting to preserve that. And anyone that says otherwise is just profoundly misinformed. And when I say profoundly misinformed, what I mean is you believe this thing and you have surrounded yourself with people and information and books that reinforce this wrong thing that you believe. This is what I'd like to do. I would like to break through all of that misinformation with just straight up facts. Straight up facts. Because a fact doesn't care about your feelings. A fact doesn't care what you think or what your mom said or how you had this discussion with some professor 5 years ago and he said XYZ. A fact is a fact is a fact. This is what happened. What happened? Why are they buried in a black cemetery? These military heroes.
Well, and the omission of facts.
And the
right?
omission
it's like
of facts.
What facts get attention, what facts do not.
What facts don't. I shouldn't have to come to a place like Gettysburg and learn for the first time that there was a black community here, that they sacrificed, that they owned land and houses, that they surrendered, and that some of them got blackbirded and dragged down to Virginia and sold into slavery. I shouldn't have to dig for that. And I shouldn't have to dig and find out for the first time that there are pit stops here on the Underground Railroad. Some houses, the Dobbins house.
One of those was at the seminary, one of the Underground Railroad stops. Yeah.
Lots of places. Or someone's telling me, and I don't even know this to be true, there's a series of tunnels underneath Lincoln Square that go out to the outskirts of the city, and that you can access them by the pub that's right on the corner. You can go down underneath, and there are all these tubes, and you can walk through. And it's right underneath, and nobody knows that. Why? Where's that tour? That's a tour that I would love to be a part of. I'd love to put something like that together. I would love to change that. I think, and if you build it, they will come. I think if Black people actually knew that something like this existed, I think there should be a kind of connectedness to all of the Underground Railroad stops, all of the old, beautiful houses, like the Seward House in Auburn that used to hide runaway slaves as well. And they were Quakers, or at least Seward's wife was a Quaker. They had slaves. This stuff shouldn't be talked about in secret, in hushed tones. It should be put on the table, It should be in the brochure, That should be a section of the brochure. It shouldn't be a secret. Just because it's a part of American history that you're uncomfortable with, or that you think is past, and why are we discussing this? Well, we're discussing it because we have an electoral college, and the electoral college was created to appease the South. That's why we're in this mess voting-wise. That's why we're not one man, one vote, because the South didn't want it that way. They legislated this. That's why we're still living in so many ways with the after effects of what happened during the 1850s, 1860s, during the Civil War. We're still having this battle. We're still having this fight, which is a weird part of walking around these battlefields for me. I am a Southerner. I am, on my father's side, 2 generations removed from slavery, and I remember all the stories that he told me about living in the South and what it was like in his day and age. He was born in 1917, and this makes it so real. This makes it real. The velocity of having something in your head from a history book come alive right in front of you when you see bullet holes in a building, or when you see the trenches and the breastplate bricks that were put in place, the rocks that were put in place, or you see the memorials, or you're reading a testimony. It's real. It's really, really real. And the Gettysburg Address, to think that these soldiers died in vain because we're still having these arguments. We're still having this fight. This war is still ongoing. Southerners, I believe, not just Southerners, but there are plenty in this country who resent Black people for having accomplished anything at all, because it flies in the face of everything that they've been taught or that they believe that we are. When you're just an overachieving, educated, when everything that you are is the exact opposite of whatever they think you are, that is really where the real work begins. Because there is something inside of them that has to be confronted that has nothing to do with us. It's like Toni Morrison, I think, was the one who said, this whole racism thing, it's on you. You, white people, created it. You built these institutions that benefited you and no one else but you. You excluded us. You fought to exclude us. We didn't do anything. You built all this stuff, and then you maintained it. So it's really up to you to take it apart.
And formalized it.
And that's
the scary thing, and made it the basis of legal things, right?
Of legal things, exactly. So it's up to you to take it apart. It's not our junk, So in seeing all of this, it's really shocking, stultifying. I woke up every day so far, and I walk down to the Devil's Den, and I climb inside of it, and I just sit there and just take it in for a moment. That is my morning constitution. What I'd really like to do...
And you're living on the battlefield during your residency, right?
I am living on the battlefield during my residency at this house that was built in the 1850s. It's got a white picket fence around it. It's lovely. It's very beautiful. I imagine it's really beautiful when it's springtime and everything is green and lush and pretty, and you see the farmland, just rolling hills stretching out before you, and it looks so pastoral, and the red barns and this kind of thing. I get it. But at the same time, I understand that as an African American, as a black person, my skin criminalizes me and makes me a threat. And the only way that I don't feel that threat is when I am amongst my own community. And yet and still, there's no safety from white people, even when that happens, even when you are amongst your own and you feel like, okay, maybe I can let my guard down. There's never really a moment when you can let it down, because anything can happen. In the same way that, back in the day, in that area, that land where Pickett's charge happened, these black people came together, they bought land, and then they built the houses on that land, and they had their community, they had their church, they had their families and their children, and looking towards a better life for themselves, and then the rug gets pulled right out from under you. That is the definition of blackbirding. You have to get up from here and leave everything that you've got, everything that you own, and just run out of here. Run. There's testimonies from white citizens of Gettysburg talking about watching black people walk down the main street. I think it begins with a C. Chambersburg? Yeah, they're walking down the street towards some wooded area. I don't know, I can't remember the name of it. And it was just nothing but sorrow. And they all knew each other. Some of these people knew each other their whole lives. But if they stepped forward and protected them, the Confederates would have killed them. Everyone would have died. So everything was hinged on survival. Everyone was just trying to survive. I can only imagine what that must have been like. There are moments when I'm in this old house and I'm just sitting there looking out the window thinking, what if someone just ran up and just threw the door open and just threw me out? And all I've got on is the clothes on my back and whatever I can grab, and suddenly I'm outside and I'm just running. Where am I going? What am I doing? What's going on? I don't know what's going on. Just to stand outside in the darkness on the road with nothing but the clothes on my back and whatever I can carry completely freaks me out. But that's not unlike what happens when you're stopped by a police officer and he thinks you're being belligerent, and all you're doing is asking, what's going on, or why are you stopping me? That's, if he thinks so, his discretion, that's enough of a reason for him to charge you with a misdemeanor, charge you for belligerence, resisting arrest, like a grocery list of things. The next thing you know, if he charges you, you're in the system. Yeah. And once you're in the system, it's impossible to get out. I mean, you can fight it, but if you've got a job that you have to get to, let's just say you're making something minimum wage, I don't know. If you don't get to that job, you're fired. Where does a lawyer and negotiation and all of that come into play? You're screwed. Once in New York City, once you're in the system, once you get written up like that, or even a write-up, the next time they get you, they throw you in jail, no questions asked. None asked. So, I don't know. I think Blackbirding happens.
It's a continuation.
It is a continuation. It's the same story. It's the same thing that's been happening to Black people since we got here. Modern day police departments are basically the search parties that would keep slaves in line on plantations. That's where the police department comes from. That's what they're doing. They are protecting white people's property, and they're protecting white people from Black people. That's what those slave patrols, keeping Black people in line, to protect and serve them, not us. I mean, you know, I've never really had any trouble with the police. There are certain things that I've always done in New York City to protect myself, and it's so ingrained in me to do this. At this point, I don't even think about it. I never wear pants, for example. I don't, everyone is wearing pantsuits and whatnot. I never wear pants. I usually almost always wear dresses. If I have an audition, I'll bring a pair of pants. But it's always a good idea to wear a dress so that if they see me from a distance, at least they'll know I'm a girl. I almost always wear lipstick. A dress and lipstick, and I usually carry a purse. Usually it's a big purse, but it's a purse. So you know this person coming at you, even if I'm wearing a big bulky coat or some sort of a knit hat, you can't see my hair or how long it is or whatever, you'll know that I'm a girl, at least. There are way too many police incidences where they're like, well, I didn't know it was a girl. Looked like a boy, 19-year-old boy, some kind of a kid, and it's a woman. It's like, what do you mean? Well, she had short hair, or she was wearing jeans, or she had a jacket, or this or that. No. At least that much is covered. So there are no accidental run-ins on that level. If they're looking for a girl, that's something else. The people that I walk with at night, the people that I hang out with, the way that we run around, where we go, how we see each other home, it's just a long list of things that I realize I do automatically without even thinking about it, just to protect myself and get through the day without getting hassled too much. And it's not even about some guy yelling at my legs or catcalling or anything like that. It's about dangerous situations that can arise out of nowhere just because a cop glimpses you and he thinks something's off, and it's not. You have to have these moments where you have the patience of Job, like a Herculean amount of patience. But even so, even when you are at your absolute best, there's always a day when you can just be off. You can have an off day. Sandra Bland had an off day. She had an off day. Yeah. She was new to the community that she was living in Detroit, I think, and she moved to Texas. And traffic stop. You know, any other day, she might have been like, well, of course I'll put my cigarette out. Yeah. But, you know, she just wasn't in the mood for it that day. Yeah. It happens just like that. There's no reason why.
And there's no proportion. There's absolutely no proportion.
There's no reason why she shouldn't be alive. 26, 27 years old when that happened. It's just ridiculous. And the police officer walks. You know, it would be different. I would feel some other kind of way about blackbirding if the police didn't keep getting away with it. If something, Amadou Diallo, if somebody would just go to jail for 10 or 15 or 20 years, if they would just put them in jail when they do wrong, take away their pension, anything, but they give them desk duty until it blows over and then everything gets smoothed out on the back end. There should be some sort of a compendium, some sort of a collective, a website, an agency, something, to where the guy that killed Tamir Rice isn't allowed to go to the other side of the country and be a cop. We need to know who he is, and he needs to be in a database that says, this is a bad cop, do not hire him, which is basically what he did. left that situation, let it all cool down, and then he went and applied to be a police officer someplace else. And you can take your pension with you? This guy was mentally not right. The military said he was mentally not right. So why does he get to be a cop? We need to find those people. The good cops need to point them out. That t-shirt, Antifa t-shirt, all cats are beautiful, all cops are bastards. And I was actually wearing that one day, and someone took me to task about it. And I said, look, okay, let's just say there's some good cops out there. I'm sure that there are wonderful cops in some communities. But if they're sitting there next to a bad cop and not pointing him out, not coming forward and saying, this is a bad cop, we've got to do something about this guy, he's trigger happy, I've gone out with him, he's stressed or whatever, then how does that not make him a bad cop too? I don't understand that. When I was a kid, whenever anybody says when I was a kid, it's usually like from the 50s or something. My father was born in 1917, so whenever he said when I was a kid, we were like, oh, you mean when there was horse and buggies in the street?
Yeah.
But when I was a kid, seriously, it wasn't that long ago. We had Officer Friendly. The man in blue is a friend to you. And Officer Friendly would show up with his partner, and they would pull up to the school with their lights flashing, and we'd go, yay, it's Officer Friendly. And they would have assembly, and what would they do? They would explain what they did all day. We're out there and we get the bad guys, but we also have to, this is all the paperwork we have to fill out, and this is what's in the car, and they push this and have the lights and talk about the speed limit and just all the things that they do. They demystified policemen, and they made you understand as a kid that they were on your side, that they meant well, that they were trying to help you. And whenever I saw a cop when I was a kid, I thought, it's Officer Friendly. When I was little, they started doing this in kindergarten, and they would sit you on their lap and they would just explain everything. Where's Officer Friendly now? Officer Friendly, I'll tell you where he is. He's completely militarized. They're taking, militarized weapons, and they're pointing them at my community. I want Officer Friendly to show up again. I want him to show up. I want him to come out to the bake sale. I want him to judge the pie contest. I want him to be cool. Yeah. Like he was when I was 5. Yeah. I want him to be a part of the community. I don't want him to stand away from us. I want him to be one of us. Yeah. The way he was when I was a kid. I can remember this one cop rode a motorcycle and he smoked cigars, and I would stop on the corner. He would direct traffic when things got really busy, and I would stop on the corner every day and talk to him. And I still remember that. We had the best talks. Aww. I remember saying to him, you should stop smoking. And he'd say, why? And I did the math one day. I sat in class and I did the math as to how many cigarettes, because he told me how many packs he smoked in. And I said, well, in this much time, you'll have this much money. And if you invest it, then you could buy a small island in the South Pacific. Aww. He took my little piece of paper. He was like, this is so cute. But I like my smokes. You know what I mean? I never forgot that.
Wow.
Where's that guy?
Yeah.
It's like, I guess I guess he's retired, and he's probably looking around wondering what happened to his police department too. Or what in the world, what have they done to my, to all of this? What's happening? I don't know. Blackbirding, the one-person show, not only includes Mag the Bluecoat and moments that happened in Gettysburg that are pivotal, because Blackbirding, for some strange reason, stopped after Gettysburg. I dovetail those things with things that are happening now, like Sandra Bland, like Khalif Browder. Khalif Browder was coming home from a party in New York, and someone pulled up in the back of a police car and said, him, that's the one. he stole this backpack and it had this in it and that in it and cash from my brother and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, no, I was at a party all night. He had witnesses that said he was at a party all night. His friends, everybody, all these people in this house party saw him. It didn't matter. They threw him in Rikers Island for more than 4 years, where he was assaulted. He was sexually assaulted. He was beaten. And he spent 2 out of those 4 years in solitary confinement. When he finally gets out, I think it was 2013, he made it 2 more years before he committed suicide. I think he was, I can't remember how old he was, 19, 20? It's just ridiculous. It never should have happened. And the prosecutor dropped the case. The whole time he's in there for 4 years, they never charged him with anything. He was just lost in the system. Finally, when it comes up, it's like, well, we don't really have anything to charge him with. The guy who accused him went back to the country he came from, and there's no evidence. There's no evidence that he did any of this. So I guess we'll just let him go. That is blackbirding. That is modern day blackbirding. How is that any different from any black person in the 1830s, 40s, 50s just getting kidnapped and taken down south and turned into a slave?
Well, this combination is really, I mean, not just powerful, but it's so interesting to hear you talk about bringing the current examples, you know, and could you say something else about the maybe the structure or the music or something about, you know, as an artist, the way that the content, the way that you're thinking about like the performance and the one-person show?
Well,
I mean, it's still in development, obviously, but
I just workshopped it at Royal Family Productions in Midtown, which was wonderful.
Oh, wow.
It's their first annual Female Forward Festival. It was such a treat. With Lorna Ventura directing and choreographing, and Jeff McLaughlin did the original music, and it's really dynamic and cool. I feel like we're off to a great start. When I started working on it, I was thinking about people who don't necessarily go to the theater. I mean, I love theater. I love performance art. I love solo performance. I love when the lights go down and the lights come up on stage and I am in it. You know, the willing suspension of disbelief. If you tell me that it's 1932, I'm there, even though I know it's not. I'm in it and I'm committed. But everybody doesn't go to the theater. Everybody doesn't love musicals like I do. So I tried to sort of stitch together something that would engage the senses at every level and at every turn. Kind of like Sesame Street. So you're getting news bites and photos, and you're getting really weird imagery. You know, you're getting snapshots from different points in Gettysburg. You know, different monuments, because that's important. You're getting lots of different commercials and photos that are put together to create a kind of theme. You know, there's a theme in the beginning of blackface, but it's blackface, contemporary blackface, like Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder. You know, not necessarily what you would think of as Americana back in the day, or Al Jolson. It's still happening, you know, but no one's calling it that because they've recontextualized it to the point where, is it, or did he, or, you know, this kind of thing. How everyone feels so entitled at Halloween to turn themselves into some sort of racist stereotype. For some strange reason. I mean, everybody does it. I mean, after a certain point, it's almost hilarious. Native Americans, Mexicans, Black people. This is seemingly these white people's moment to shine. That has always struck me as weird. That's in there as well. And there's monologues and there's storytelling and there's original music. And I want to break things down that are historically important, really important historic moments that I can't let get away, just me personally. Like Black Confederate soldiers. That's an oxymoron and it never existed. But there is, and there's no serious scholarly research that says that it's true. But because of this conflama of backwards information that emanated from the 60s and the 70s when Black folks were really coming up on their own and white people in certain areas of the country were threatened by that, that's when this really reared its ugly head. You had camp slaves, also called body servants, who were dressed like Confederate soldiers and who were not allowed to carry weapons of any kind, not allowed to carry guns of any kind, not allowed to defend themselves at all against a white person, or that was a felony punishable by death. They really didn't have any license over their own lives, and yet they found a way to survive. In many instances, camp slaves turned themselves into a business. I mean, they would cook a stew and sell it. They would polish boots. They would take in laundry, and just turn themselves into a money-making machine, and send that money back home or save that money. Sometimes they were making more money than the person that they supposedly belonged to in some weeks. Just incredible. And not leaving because you're married, you have a wife, you have a child, you have a family in the South that if you ran off to the North, you'd never see again. In the same way that you wouldn't pick up and not see your kids or your husband or whoever, that's not an option. We've got to figure something else out. So your loyalty means your family gets to stay together. It doesn't mean that you're for the South. It means that you're for your family. There's a bigger picture at stake, but these are the stories that never get told. There were hundreds of thousands of uprisings that Black folk did during slavery. It wasn't just Nat Turner. It was lots of people, but no one talks about that.
Again, it's the facts that are shared and the facts that are not shared.
There's all these facts that are not shared. And there are books that are written about this, and in some circles they teach it. I had an excellent teacher when I was in advanced place history in high school that really gave me thirst for the other side of history. I would read things and he would encourage the class to look at what they're not telling you, what really happened, what's the other side of this. You're sort of like a detective at the scene of the crime. And once I started thinking that way about historical facts, that's when I just started deconstructing things in my own mind and looking further, looking beyond whatever I was told, or understanding that this person is telling me this from their perspective. We talk about our feminist heroes, but usually they're white feminist heroes, and a lot of them were really bigoted and racist. The Katie Huffman, Katie's, I'm not saying the name right.
Oh, Elizabeth Cady Stanton?
Yes. Elizabeth Cady Stanton was a virulent racist. And when she was hard at work towards her marches for female equality, she was promising white men, oh, black women, we'll just put them in a back. They're not participating in any of this. I mean, it's almost shocking how racist these people were. These white women were, who owned slaves. I mean, I know that we like to think that back in the day, white women were on pedestals and helpless, but the truth was they could own slaves, they could own land, they could own property, they could inherit property, slaves, and land, and they did. Oni Judge, who was a slave of Washington's who ran away, she ran away because she knew that she was about to be sold to Martha Washington's cousin, who was an absolute bitch. She was like, there's no way I'm going there. And this was a girl who was brought into the house to be a playmate to one of Washington's daughters. So that whole slave, outside, slave inside, sometimes the slaves who were inside were angrier than anybody else. I guess because they could see close up what was happening and were more frustrated because they were so close to whatever freedom people thought they had and they couldn't have it. And we know about Washington's household because of her, because she lived to be a ripe old age and people interviewed her extensively. He did not teach them how to read or write. They were not given any religious teachings or anything like that. They were just there to do these white people's bidding, and that's the president. But remember, at that particular time, when Pennsylvania said, you know what, no slavery here, we're going to phase this out. And they came up with things like, if your slave is pregnant, you can't just go over here to Virginia and have her have the baby, and then the baby's a slave. No, you can't do that. That's illegal, kind of a thing. She got away because of a statute in Pennsylvania that said, if you have a slave and if they're here for more than 6 months, then they're free. 6 months and 1 day. That 1 day, they're free. So she made friends with people who were in Philadelphia who were free black folk, sent all of her belongings ahead of herself, and skipped out while they were having dinner. And she was young when she did that. She was a young girl. She ended up in New Hampshire, married to a sailor, and had 3 kids. But those children were slaves, and she was a slave. She was constantly looking over her shoulder, even up until Washington died, and even after that. But there are letters and notes from him to people in the area, people that saw her and knew where she was, and him demanding that she come back, demanding her recapture, this kind of thing. The Washington that I'm seeing in those letters is nothing like the Washington that I was reading about when I was a kid in history books. I'm like, my gosh, this man is a beast. I had no idea. Also, in Mount Vernon, in his house, where the teeth are, do you know those teeth are human? Yeah, it wasn't just ivory or whatever. The false teeth in his mouth were human, which really shocks a lot of people. But there's no reason why, if a white person owns this black person, that they wouldn't feel privy or obliged to any part of them, including their teeth. Sitting someone down and yanking their teeth out so the president can have them. I don't see that as being especially far-fetched. And everyone, when they found out, wait a minute, these are human teeth, were trying to explain it away. Well, maybe, it's like, okay, we all know what probably happened, don't we? I think we do. That's terrible. I shouldn't, but that's the alternative history I really want to delve into. And I think everybody needs a liberal arts degree of some sort, like a basic 4-year liberal arts degree where you spend your 3rd year in a foreign country going to coffee houses and little shops and having a little part-time job in France or wherever, where you could experience another culture, learn another language, and get some perspective on yourself. And then you come back and finish your 4 years, and then you get a job waiting tables somewhere. So you can be respectful to people who actually do that work.
Yeah.
You know? A basic 4-year liberal arts degree from a decent school will give you that history lesson. The problem is no one is taking the history seriously, and the books that they are giving you are so watered down and filled with weirdness, like, you know, these migrant workers, not slaves, migrant workers, came from this part of the world, and you know, they were workers. They were workers? I mean, there are textbooks floating around out there telling children that, you know, there were no African slaves. Workers. Workers. It's almost laughable, but they're serious. It's like they're phasing out slavery because it's something that they're not comfortable with. And I don't know. What did Dave Chappelle say? Why can't I quote everybody today? I'm trying to quote everybody. He said something like, when he talked about the demise of his show, white people own everything, white people control everything. And there's a very limited, what you're doing, I think the gist of what he meant was, whatever you're doing because they allow it. So there's only but so far that you'll get, or so much that you'll get, you know, if you're saying something that they don't like or that they're uncomfortable with. Everything is about their comfort. I think that for far too long, Black people have existed on the whim of white people. And that's really what the solo show is all about.
Well, I am so excited about the show.
Well, no, I'm doing more than that. I've got an album coming out of Black Americana. I've got a jazz CD coming out. There's all this other stuff that I'm doing, you know. But yeah, I'm really excited about that show. I love solo performance, but I think it's really such a labor of love that whatever it is you're doing, whatever the show is, it has to drive you forward. It has to be something that you're excited about and that you feel deeply about and passionately about. It, you know, the show is driving me. I'm not driving it.
Yeah.
And after all of the reading that I've done, to come to Gettysburg and to see the places and the things and the, you know, the buildings that I've seen in books, it just makes it real. It makes the people real. And they matter. They matter. They still matter. I can't even imagine being Mag, putting on a blue coat so that when I have this blue coat on, you know that my train is pulled up to the station.
Wow, yeah.
You know, that is an indicator.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
everybody, it's a coat that she wore from the Revolutionary War, and everybody knows what this means when I wear this coat. The white people in this town know when they see me walking around with this blue coat on that I'm taking people on board this, you know, Underground Railroad, and that I'm putting my life at risk every time I put it on. I can't imagine that. I can't imagine these two slave catchers wrestling with her in the middle of the street at dusk out here in Gettysburg. You know, they had her tied up practically, and she bit off the thumb of one of these guys. She bit his thumb off, and that's what, him screaming is what got people out and got them to her to help, you know, get them away from her. I mean, the temerity of mind, the will, the sheer will of this woman to do this. And she had a husband and she had a small child and she did it anyway. Where's her statue?
Yeah.
Where is her statue? Why don't we have a statue dedicated to her? there should be some indication of where she lived, or there should be a statue or some marker for where the Black folk owned property and lived. That should be not something that's separate, like the Black Cemetery. It should be incorporated into all of what Gettysburg has to offer. I shouldn't be digging through all of these scholarly books and telling these people, Black people own that property, and they're going, well, I've never heard that. It's like, why haven't you heard that? It's not, if it's true that it's not just battle strategy, it's people's lives. It should be everyone's lives. And what about all the infighting with the Union soldiers and the Germans? Nobody talks about the German factor. Pennsylvania Dutch is a misappropriation of Deutsch. We know that there's a strong German presence in Pennsylvania. But what they don't talk about is all of the different ethnicities that came and joined the Union Army to fight. The Irish, for example, and you see the tributes on the battlefield to them. I don't see any for the Germans. The Germans had this troop, and they treated them like dogs. They said that they weren't loyal, that they had no courage, no backbone, no conviction, that they lacked fidelity. Just really harsh. They had so much to prove, and they were gallant. They were heroic in battle. They were incredible. And I don't know. I'm going to ask about them as well.
Yeah.
I think that the German history in America is hidden, and it shouldn't be, because it's such an important part of this country. We almost spoke German. Yeah. Benjamin Franklin was really bucking for it. Interestingly enough, no one understands the German connection, or French. There's so much in Charleston, South Carolina, where my family's from. You have all of this war memorabilia and statues and things dedicated to Lafayette, but also Pulaski. So yeah, the ethnicity, the infighting, and all of that wrangling, I think that's interesting, and I don't necessarily see that highlighted here either.
Well, I want to thank you for thank you for the questions that you're raising, and thank you for your presence here. I am really excited about the Blackbirding, the show. This is going to be dynamite, and also. One of the purposes of the artists in the national park, in Gettysburg in particular, is this sense of artists also being ambassadors. So it's like what you bring yourself here, and then you also go away as an ambassador of things that you sort of. And so I'm very excited about that, yeah. And I want to thank you for that. And also, I have a note here from the Seminary Ridge Museum in Gettysburg. They would like to present you with a free pass for 2 people to tour the museum and visit the cupola with its unique view of the town and the battlefield. It has 3 floors of exhibit that connect visitors to the dilemmas which led to the Civil War, provide a powerful and personal view of the battle's first day, and show the work of one of the battlefield's largest field hospitals. For more information, visit seminaryridgemuseum.org.
I can't wait to go. I'm really hoping that I can take my dog, Buddy. My permanent boyfriend will be here soon.
Awesome. The cupola is incredible. You've been listening to The Seminary Explores. I'm Katie Giebenhein. My guest is Queen Esther, artist in residence at the Gettysburg National Military Park. Visit her website, queen-esther.com. Queen Esther, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here.
Have a wonderful rest of the residency. You have been listening to The Seminary Explores, a production of United Lutheran Seminary with campuses in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We invite you to visit our website at unitedlutheranseminary.edu. opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of United Lutheran Seminary or the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America.